Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, all right, I need to show you something. Bright. World maps. So, we're watching a video on Tallinn and Helsinki, the capitals of Estonia and Finland, respectively. But I just want to show you something real quick, all right? Maybe this isn't a surprise to you, okay? Because the Europe is really like a giant peninsula that hangs off of Asia, that goes in a slight downward to the left, downward west direction. And so it throws me off, okay? Because Rhode Island, where I'm from, right about here, okay, is the same as around here, all right? Helsinki, which is like right there. I think I can show you the coordinates. 60.3, okay? Watch. About here. 59, sorry. And Anchorage is about 61, I think. 61 is about there, okay? So I am considered kind of north in the United States. I mean, New York City is a northern city in the US, and I'm a bit north of that. It's another about 1,300 miles, I think. 1,317 miles to go straight north to get to where the latitude that that Finland and Helsinki is at, which is crazy to me. Maybe it's not crazy to you, but I always forget just how far up north these cities are. So I just wanted to point that out at first. My name's Connor. Hello, Jesus, brain can't say things. Original link to the video, top of the description. Let's learn about Tallinn and Helsinki, the Baltic sisters.
Back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we're in the north of Europe, exploring two great capitals on the Baltic Sea, Tallinn and Helsinki. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, ready. Hope everyone's doing well. Hi, guys.
Helsinki and Tallinn each suffered through a challenging 20th century, but today both are enjoying good times. Longtime Baltic cousins, Finns travel to Tallinn for affordable R&R, and people in Estonia watched Helsinki TV all through the Cold War to at least know what freedom and prosperity looked like back when they didn't have it. In Helsinki, we'll stroll with Finns on their grand esplanade, explore the Gibraltar of the North, visit both of Helsinki's iconic cathedrals, simmer in a sauna,
Classic.
and cruise the islands of Helsinki's harbor. Then we'll cross the Baltic
Oh, that's Sweden.
to Estonia.
I was going to say, doesn't Finland have the most islands in the world? But I think that's Sweden. I think you have a lot of lakes, right? But I think even Canada's huge, so obviously they're going to have a bit more. Sorry.
Helsinki's harbor. Then we'll cross the Baltic to Estonia and stroll Tallinn's remarkably preserved Old Town, relax in the gardens of a Russian palace, check out social realism Estonian style, and learn how Estonians sang their way to freedom from the Soviet Union. In the north of Europe, the Baltic Sea is ringed by Russia, the Baltic nations, and the Scandinavian nations. We start in Finland's capital, Helsinki, and then ferry to Estonia's capital, Tallinn. Helsinki is the only European capital with no medieval past. It was founded and ruled by the Swedes in the 16th century to be a strategic Baltic port. But the location was poor, and it never amounted to more than a village. Then in the 18th century, the Swedes built a huge fortress in the harbor, and Helsinki grew and prospered. Today, with
So you have a lot of connection to Scandinavia. I mean, parts of Finland are on Scandinavian peninsula, but your language is not a Nordic language or even Germanic, right? I think that's fascinating. Nor is it Slavic. So I think that's interesting, and there's a story to tell there.
500,000 people, Helsinki is by far Finland's leading city.
If I'm saying anything wrong,
in spite of its
let me know.
Swedish roots, old Helsinki feels Russian. That's because when the Russians took over Finland in 1809, they made it Finland's capital, modeled after their capital, St. Petersburg. Stone buildings, white trim, and neoclassical columns. Since downtown Helsinki wasn't built until the 1800s, it was more logically designed and laid out than other European capitals. Helsinki's Grand Boulevard, the Esplanade, provides wide and inviting sidewalks for shoppers and a people-friendly park up the middle. The city seems...
What an interesting tree. You know what this reminds me of? You'll find them in like southern France on the Mediterranean, or Italy, especially, or maybe, Spain, certain parts of Spain. But there's this pine tree. I normally think of it as the tree that I think of when I think of the movie Gladiator. Just reminds me of the Roman Empire. But it looks a lot like this, but it's clearly a different kind of tree. The one I'm thinking of looks more like I forget the name for trees that don't have leaves, but they have needles. Interesting tree is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. All right.
And a people-friendly park up the middle. The city seems designed to promote a sense of community, and on warm summer days, people take full advantage. Cafe Capelli is an old-world oasis of coffee and relaxation. In the 19th century, this was a popular hangout for Russian officers, local intellectuals, and artists. The bandstand features live music almost daily in the summer. The arrival of cruise ships sliding through tight passages between Helsinki's surrounding islands energizes the city each day.
Is that sped up? That seems pretty fast.
Most arrive by cruise ship. The towering Viking and Silja ships are each floating hotels for the thousands making the scenic island-studded trip from Stockholm. Hopping off their boat, visitors head directly for Helsinki's delightful and vibrant harbor square. Explore the colorful outdoor market, part souvenirs and crafts, and part veggies and fruit. The strawberries here are famous.
They are famous, yeah. They are very nice ones, and these ones are grown on the island. So
Can I try
the archipelago Finnish.
And organic from the island.
Yeah, really nice ones. No pesticides used.
Nice. I'll have a little box, please.
Gotta love for it.
The market is the place for the most casual, quick and cheap lunch in town. The salmon grills are a favorite. Everyone from the Finnish president on down to visiting tourists stops by for a dash of local flavor. While Helsinki's history is short, monuments to it are everywhere. The Tsarina stone with its...
Okay, so this takes an excuse that I have for like the bleakness of a lot of U.S. cities, is that a lot of U.S. cities were built semi-recently, right? Like 1800s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s. And I blame that on, us not having a lot of nice town squares where you don't just have street after street to accommodate cars. But you guys have it. And as was just said, you were created with more logistics in mind because you could. And yet we didn't do that. So what is with the U.S. and not creating more walkable cities?
Short,
I don't know.
Monuments to it are everywhere. The Tsarina stone, with its double-headed eagle of Imperial Russia, was erected in 1835 to celebrate the visit by Tsar Nicholas and Tsarina Alexandra. This fountain has become a symbol of Helsinki, the city nicknamed the Daughter of the Baltic. The voluptuous figure, modeled after the artist's Parisian mistress, was a scandal in its more Puritan day. A short ferry ride takes us across the harbor to Helsinki's most important site. Suomenlinna, an island guarding Helsinki's harbor, served as a strategic fortress for 3 countries, Sweden, Russia, and then Finland. It's now a popular park with a fascinating story. The fortress was built by the Swedes with French financial support in the mid-1700s to counter Russia's rise to power. Russia's Peter the Great had just built his new capital, St. Petersburg, nearby in the Baltic, and he was...
Guys, so is this... Is the you see the kind of cone shape, kind of like, you remember those like 90s style lightsabers for Star Wars, the plastic things you could buy and you could like whip it out and it would stretch out? Is this so that instead of one giant stop to when you fire around, it'll first backfire into this one, which will then back into this one, which will then back into this, which will make it less damaging to the gun as a whole, where you might just have it bounce back right to the back of the gun. Does that make any sense?
The fort counter Russia's rise to power. Russia's Peter the Great had just built his new capital, St. Petersburg, nearby in the Baltic, and he was eyeing the west. Think of it as European superpowered chess. The Russians moved to St. Petersburg. The French countered by moving a Swedish castle here to Helsinki, stopping the Russian offensive, at least for the time being. The fortress was Sweden's military pride and joy. With 5 miles of walls and hundreds of cannon, it was the second mightiest fort of its kind in Europe, after Gibraltar. Built by more than 10,000 workers, the fort was a huge investment and stimulated lots of innovation. In the 1760s, this was the world's biggest and most modern dry dock. After the construction of this fort, the village of Helsinki became a boom town, supporting this grand Gibraltar of the North. Today, Suomenlinna is most appreciated by locals for its scenic strolls. Explore the park. There are ramparts to ramble and cannon to ponder. Cafes nestle in the shade of the walls. You'll find Finns on the rocks and families enjoying their humble beach. Back in town, Helsinki's Senate Square, with the Lutheran Cathedral as its centerpiece, is one of the finest neoclassical squares in all of Europe. The buildings, which formed the original square, burned down in 1808. Then, after Finland became part of the Russian Empire, the Tsar sent in his leading architect, Karl Engel, to rebuild the square and give it the stature and elegance it has today. This statue honors Russian Tsar Alexander II. While not popular in Russia, in fact he was eventually assassinated, Finns liked him. He gave Finland more autonomy in 1863 and never pushed the Russification of Finland. The staircase leading up to the cathedral is a popular meeting and tanning spot. This is where students from the nearby university gather and couples meet.
I love the nuance you guys have so far, from what I can tell, in appreciating your history, and that, like, just because it has anything to do with Russia, it's not thrown out. It's more nuanced and detailed than that, just like that statue shows.
With its stately dome and statues of 12 apostles, the Lutheran Cathedral overlooks the city and harbor. Finished in 1852, its austerity is striking. I like to take a moment, surrounded by Finland's great reformers, to savor neoclassical simplicity. Physically, this church seems perfectly Protestant, unadorned, with the emphasis on 2 things: preaching, with its prominent pulpit, and music, with its grand organ. Statuary is limited to the Reformation big shots: Martin Luther, Philip Melanchthon, Luther's intellectual sidekick, and the leading Finnish reformer, Mikael Agricola.
Guys, so the big difference, or the big reason why the Protestant, Reformation started, right? 99 Theses, is because people thought that the Catholic Church was just too much of a means of power, rather than just anything to do with, church or Jesus and stuff like that. Can that be like the general meaning for the split between Catholic and Protestant? It's just the Protestants were like, you're not even all about the religion anymore. It's all entangled in power and whatnot. Is that fair to summarize the split?
A follower of Luther in Germany, Agricola brought the Reformation here to Finland. He also translated the Bible into Finnish. Agricola's Bible is to Finland what the Luther Bible is to Germany, and the King James Bible is to the English-speaking world. Nearby, also overlooking Helsinki, is the Orthodox Uspensky Cathedral. It faces the Lutheran Cathedral, much as Russian culture faces Europe. Built in 1868 for the Russians back when Finland belonged to Russia, its main dome...
Sorry, look at how the light perfectly lights that up. That looks really cool. I'm not a religious person. I never have been. Obviously, being in the USA, Christianity is the first religion you think about. But I just, my love for churches and appreciation for churches and stuff has nothing to do with religion, really. They're beautiful and they have historical meaning, and so I like them.
It faces the Lutheran Cathedral, much as Russian culture faces Europe. Built in 1868 for the Russians back when Finland belonged to Russia, its main dome represents the Sacred Heart of Jesus, while the smaller ones represent the hearts of the 12 apostles. Today, this is the spiritual home of the city's Finnish Orthodox community. Its interior
beautiful.
offers a rich experience. Icons of saints oversee flickering candles, which represent prayers of the Orthodox faithful. These plush Eastern images are a stark contrast to the spare Lutheran cathedral. Helsinki is set in a natural wonderland, and hopping a boat tour for a 90-minute cruise makes that very clear. The several hundred islands of its archipelago provide a delightful playground. Leaving the harbor, you pass mighty icebreakers in their summer slumber. With the capacity to break through 15 feet.
How far south does the Baltic Sea freeze? Anyone? I definitely asked this. Okay. Okay. All right.
Device, they're a reminder. With the capacity to break through 15 feet of ice, they're a reminder of the bitter Baltic winters. Lonely cabins cap glacier-ground granite. Finns are good at getting the most out of the long days of their short summer. Many have family cabins here, and a standard feature is a freestanding sauna. But you don't need a cabin to enjoy a sauna. At this neighborhood sauna, the regulars gather daily. Each morning, the wood fire is stoked. That afternoon, in parallel facilities, men and women come to relax. For the Finns, the sauna is a lifestyle. Popular year-round, it's especially appealing in the long, cold winters. Buckets of icy water are great for dousing when you get too hot. Finns claim that bundles of birch twigs enhance the experience, increasing circulation, opening your pores, and spritzing the air with a wonderful birch aroma. Cap the experience relaxing with the local gang on the sidewalk just outside. Public trams can serve as a handy vehicle for a budget do-it-yourself tour. Helsinki's tram number 3 makes a scenic city loop. It runs every few minutes, tickets are good for an hour, and it's great for hopping on and off to sightsee.
Trams, they seem, to my American, they seem kind of dangerous. You know, it's like having because trains just in general seem dangerous, and having trams in more crowded areas. But I mean, I don't have any evidence to back it up, and I'm sure it's not the case. But I just think that way, you know?
The train station was built in the early 1900s.
I have no
Stern
evidence.
Figures with lamps recall a time when this city provided light to a mostly rural nation, and the rest of the world seemed very far away. A couple stops away is the city's main shopping drag. The Three Blacksmiths statue has stood here since 1932. Locals say it celebrates human labor and cooperation and shows the solid character of the Finnish people.
Finland stood courageously strong against the Soviet Union and artfully maintained its independence through the Cold War. Today, tucked up here in the far north corner of Europe, this city seems to celebrate both peace and culture.
600 stainless steel pipes shimmering in a park honor Finland's greatest composer, Sibelius. The monument is built on solid rock, as is so much of Finland. Sibelius, who composed in the late 19th century and early 20th, wrote music that stirred the national soul. His music, like paintings by Finland's romantic artists hanging in the National Gallery, evokes the vast forest land, mythic legends, deep pagan roots, and heroic struggles of a stoic nation. music and art that is uniquely Finnish contribute to the staying power of this small country of 5 million. A selection of ferries make the 50-mile crossing between Helsinki and Tallinn nearly hourly. Because of the ease of this delightful 2-hour cruise and the variety a quick trip over to Estonia adds to your Nordic...
5 million people. I mean, that's, given the size, I just want to bring this over here, okay? I love this true size of .com. I'm just going to type in Rhode Island. Let me just say this first. I live in the smallest state in the United States. But I mean, we have a bit over 1 million people. And so you guys have about 5 times the population we do. And yeah, a little bit bigger than my state. It's probably about as big as the metropolitan area of Helsinki. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry. All right.
Travels, pairing Helsinki and Tallinn is a natural. Stepping off the boat in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, you feel you've traveled a long way culturally from Finland. It's a mix of East and West. Tallinn's Nordic Lutheran culture and language connect it with Stockholm and Helsinki. But 2 centuries of Tsarist Russian and nearly 50 years as part of the Soviet Union have blended in a distinctly Russian flavor.
Finns and Estonians share a similar history. First, Swedish domination, then Russian, then independence after World War I. Until 1940, the Estonians were about as affluent as the Finns. But then, Estonia was gobbled up by an expanding Soviet empire and spent the decades after World War II under communism. When the USSR fell, Estonia regained its freedom, and in 2004, it joined the European Union.
Tallinn has modernized at an astounding rate since the fall of the Soviet Union.
I wonder if Estonians or anyone else would consider Estonia more alike. I'm not saying it has to be alike either, but more alike its Baltic neighbors to the south and Latvia and Lithuania, or more like Finland and Sweden. It seems like it might be a mix of both.
Its business district shines with the same glass and steel gleam you'll find in any modern city. Yet nearby are the rugged and fully intact medieval walls, and the town within these ramparts has a beautifully preserved old world ambience. Among medieval cities in the north of Europe, none are as well preserved as Tallinn. The town hall square was a marketplace through the centuries. Its fine old buildings are a reminder that Tallinn was once an important medieval trading center. Today, it's a touristy scene, full of people just having fun. Through the season, each midday, cruise ship groups congest the center as they blitz the town in the care of local guides. Like many tourist zones, Tallinn's is a commercial gauntlet. Here there's a hokey torture museum, strolling Russian dolls, medieval theme restaurants complete with touts, and enthusiastic hawkers of ye old taste treats. But just a couple blocks away is, for me, the real attraction of Tallinn. Workaday locals enjoying real freedom and better economic times. Still ramshackle courtyards host inviting cafes. Bistros serve.
This is
still
just I don't. There are nice parts of the USA. It's a nice place. It's a beautiful natural beauty. A lot of it in the United States. However, and I'm far from the most traveled person in the United States, okay? I've never even been to the West Coast, so take my opinion with a little grain of salt. But we lack charm. Okay? It's the best way I can put it. We lack charm. Like, look at the old looking with the new style, the beautiful vines. Just there's something so just European about this that I see in a lot of different countries that I watch travel videos or history videos of, and I'm upset every time because we don't have it.
Host inviting cafes.
And we could have
Bistros serve organic cuisine in a chic patina of old world meets new. And just outside the walls, it seems there's no tourism at all. Under towering ramparts, the former moat is now a park, perfect for a warm afternoon stroll.
In the 15th century, Tallinn consisted of two feuding medieval towns. The upper town, on a hill called Toompea, is from where the country of Estonia has long been ruled. The lower town was an independent city. As a member of the Hanseatic Trading League, it was an economic power here in the Baltic world.
Teutonic Knights, too? Or no, Teutonic Order? Or this, no?
This thriving port town was filled with mostly German merchants who hired Estonians
I know
to do
Hanseatic
their
League.
menial labor. The old town feels Germanic, with streets lined by the fancy facades of those 15th century big-shot merchants. This merchant's home functioned as his warehouse and office as well. Its elaborately carved door evokes the wealth of Tallinn's business class in those days. Stairs lead from the lower Old Town into the fortified Upper Town, Toompea. Climbing into Estonia's historic capital, it's clear the architecture tells a story. Neighboring Russia has always loomed large and threatening over little Estonia. The Alexander Nevsky Cathedral was built here by Russians in 1900.
Why is it... What is the connection with... It's these style roofs that I associate with two things, okay? Aladdin, the movie Aladdin, so like Arabia, you know, like the kind of bulbous,
Cathedral was built
almost, you know, onion-shaped roof or cap to towers. I want to know, was it just an Orthodox Christian thing that took from more Middle Eastern style stuff and just expanded it into Eastern Europe, or maybe it was completely different. Maybe it's the other way around. But I also think of the Kremlin, right, in Moscow, of these very distinct style of roofing here. I'd like to know the history of the
built here by
architecture style.
Russians in 1900. While a beautiful building, most Estonians don't like this church.
Diagonal.
It was built to face the Estonian Parliament building, clearly designed to flex Russian cultural muscles during a period of Estonian national revival. This tower survives from the original Toompea castle. Nicknamed Tall Herman, it's a powerful symbol here.
Tall Herman, I like that.
For 50 years, throughout
Nice
the Cold
grass.
War, Estonian flags were hidden away, and the Soviet flag flew from atop this tower. Then, as the USSR was unraveling, Estonians proudly and defiantly replaced the red Soviet flag with their own.
Today, while Toompea is filled with Estonian government buildings, it's also simply a pleasant place to stroll and enjoy some romantic viewpoints. Russia's
It's a bit difficult for me to comment on the Soviet stuff because I just feel like I'm biased. I'm American. Soviet American didn't really get along. And so people are people, okay? Culture is culture. I'll leave it there. I don't like to, okay, just
influence over
America does horrible. Why am I, forget it. Just forget
Estonia
it.
goes
Forget it.
back
Forget it.
to buildings. It's also simply a pleasant place to stroll and enjoy some romantic viewpoints. Russia's influence over Estonia goes back long before the Soviet Union. When Russia took over Estonia in 1710, Tsar Peter the Great built the stately Kadriorg Palace for his Tsarina, Catherine. The Tsarina's private garden is now Tallinn's finest public park. The standard progression as divine monarchies give way to modern democracies. And the former guardhouse now serves coffee to commoners. The leading site within the park is the Kumu Art Museum, Estonia's striking national gallery.
I don't like communism or the Soviet Union or now Russia, but for different reasons. But if someone doesn't like where I'm from, I just want to make sure that I don't say anything like certain, like I know, like this is worse, this is better. So if people have opinions, I'll leave it there, you know.
Opened with pride and fanfare in 2006. While Estonian art evolved in step with the rest of Europe, it was also shaped along the way by the nation's history. For instance, 19th century Romanticism was the artistic style of Estonia's aristocratic German landlords.
That's so good. For some reason, the thing that stands out more than like the beautiful paintings of the dress is somehow the piece of wood here, because it even shows like piece of the bark kind of being disconnected and the shadow painted in between. The detail is crazy.
Romanticism was the artistic style of Estonia's aristocratic German landlords, who enjoyed art featuring idyllic Estonian peasant women in folk costumes and idealized settings.
Love this style of art.
Local artists continued to paint in sync with European styles from Impressionism through Cubism and so on. But Estonian art parted ways with Western Europe after the Soviet takeover in 1945, which brought the end of artistic freedom. The Soviets insisted on one kind of art, social realism. This was beyond censorship. Art had to actively promote the communist struggle. The Estonian Artists' Union was forced to renounce individual expression and be re-educated. The Stalinist formula? National in style, but socialist in content. Painters produced themes like this.
National Socialist.
Titled Painters produced themes like this, titled Excellent Young Communist Workers. Industry was celebrated. Mining was big in Estonia, so miners were portrayed as heroes, marching like soldiers to their glorious work.
I mean, it's a crazy, dangerous
Soviet
job.
Women were shown not as the idyllic cliché of traditional motherhood, but as strong laborers working side by side with men. They were entirely engaged in the quest to reach the communist ideal. Here, a woman oversees the bolstering of agricultural production. Posters were a natural fit for social realism. They could be mass-produced. They generally came with a proclamation. This one reads, "It's good to work hard and buy government bonds." And they carried the propaganda message to every corner of society. In the 1960s, things began to change. Many Estonian artists took a more independent and avant-garde approach, injecting hints of social commentary into their work. This angered Khrushchev, and many of these artists ended up in Siberia. But as the Soviets would eventually learn, change was unstoppable. Western ideals began to infiltrate. Estonia was the only part of the USSR where pop art was recognized. Painters featured utopian scenes viewed through the eyes of alienated urbanites.
Whoa. It's like a painting in a painting in a painting. It's like a painting. No, it's like a painting in a painting in a painting in a video. It's beautiful. The art in this video is absolutely astounding.
Estonia was the only part of the USSR where pop art was recognized. Painters featured utopian scenes viewed through the eyes of alienated urbanites. Artists flirted with the psychedelic as a new generation came of age. Local guide Matti Ramasen, who grew up under communism and did his military service as a driver in the Soviet Army, is joining me to help us better understand the challenges of living 50 years under the Soviets.
I remember when Viru Hotel was the only skyscraper of city, and because KGB was very curious of every word spoken by foreign tourists, we had a local joke.
I'm so curious at what this guy has to say. Hold on.
Understand the challenges of living 50 years under the Soviets.
I remember when Viru Hotel was the only skyscraper of city, and because KGB was very curious of every word spoken by foreign tourists, we had a local joke that the house was built from Soviet wonder material, so-called microconcrete, which would be 60% concrete and about 40% of microphones.
Tallinn's vast and blocky suburb of Lasnamäe, with about 90,000 apartment flats, dates back to communist times. The Soviet
I would annoy that guy so much by just the amount of questions I would have to ask him.
Attempted to Russify Estonia by planting or moving people into this country. Because of that, about a quarter of all Tallinners are ethnic Russians. And as is clear at this about 90,000 apartment flats dates back to communist times. The Soviets attempted to Russify Estonia by planting or moving people into this country. Because of that, about a quarter of all Tallinners are ethnic Russians. And as is clear at this predominantly Russian market, the plantation of people, as it seems is always the case when governments move people for political purposes, leaves a poorer and struggling ethnic minority. And their reluctance to assimilate leaves long-term social challenges. Nearby is the stage from where the people of Estonia gathered to demand their independence. The Song Festival grounds, which hosts massive choral festivals, is a uniquely Estonian institution. This is a national monument because of the stirring role it played in Estonia's fight for independence. With only 1 million people lodged between Russia and Germany, and without a strong military, Estonians asserted themselves with song. They say being together and singing together was their power. 300,000 Estonians gathering here to sing together.
Yeah, one day in 1988, 1/3 of Estonian nation gathered here to sing.
It's
To
crazy.
sing about the freedom, about the independence, to show to the rest of the world and especially to the Soviet side that we are tired to be one part of the Soviet system. And as we can see now, almost 20 years later, that it was successful.
Tallinn's Museum of the Occupation rounds out the story. Suitcases are a reminder of people who fled the country, leaving everything behind. Displays show how Russians managed to keep the Estonians in line. Surveillance was a part of daily life. Prison doors evoke the countless lives lost in detention and deportation. And the communist leaders who once lorded over the Estonian people are now in the basement, guarding the toilets.
Who are these guys? So there was Lenin, I think that was
And the
Brezhnev.
communist leaders who once lorded over the Estonian
Lenin again, Brezhnev. I'm not sure who these guys are.
people are now in the basement, guarding the toilets. With freedom, Tallinn has joined Helsinki as a vibrant and welcoming destination. Each has a unique charm. Helsinki with its thriving esplanade, striking neoclassical design, and island escapes. And Tallinn with its medieval old town witnessing the emergence of a new prosperity. While Tallinn and Helsinki each have their own story, traveling here we share in the good times of two resilient and flourishing nations. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling.
Fantastic. I love Rick Steves Europe videos. I know this one is 11 years old, okay? So I'm sure there could be stuff in the video that you're like, wait, that's not how it is now. I get it. It's fantastic. Rick Steves Europe videos, they're a great combination of history and travel. And I love watching both history and travel videos. It's just a perfect fit. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. I'd appreciate any answers to any questions I had. If I'd said something that was just wrong, call me out, please. I love nothing more than that. And any comments at all. I hope you guys are doing well. I love y'all. Chin up. If you're not doing well, don't worry. Emotions are fickle, my friend. See you guys next time. Bye.